Welcome back to Art Fennell Reports. I am here with Craig T. Williams, author of the book The Olympian, An American Triumph. It is the book that covers the life and times of John Baxter Taylor, America's first black Olympic gold medalist. As you say, a quarter miler from the University of Pennsylvania. And Craig, I keep saying it's a good read. This seems to be a book, though, that's not even necessarily just for a sports fan or a track fan, because it's really, you've got some love story in here. You've got controversy and culture weaved into it. No, by the way, it's about track and field meet at the Olympic Games, too.
Sure, and I mean, that's really what drew me to the story, is that he's such a multi-dimensional personality and accomplished so much outside of track and field.
Sure, people would say the same thing about you. Multi-dimensional personality. You're not an author by trade, so to speak. I mean,
Correct.
You run a company. Tell us about Craig Williams.
Sure. I am a general contractor, construction manager right here in the Philadelphia area. I've done quite a few projects in and around Philly, but my company is a Northeast corridor firm, up and down Route 95, if you will, doing a lot of projects for the federal government. And that's my primary vocation.
That's your day job.
That's my day job. That's my day job.
And then, how do you go from that, being a general contractor and doing federal contracts with the government, to writing The Olympian? How do you mix those two?
I've always had a passion for telling stories. I mean, as a young man, I always loved great heroic stories like King Arthur and Robin Hood and you know, all the classics that depict heroic deeds. And from college, I've just always had a serious hobby of writing.
You had to, I would imagine, you had to become John Baxter Taylor to write this book in the way that it's written, because it's told, as you say, from the first person point of view. So we're listening to the words of John Baxter Taylor. We're going through what he went through, feeling his anxiety and his pain and his triumphs and his love affair when his heart is fluttering, as he says, when he sees the love of his life. What's her name again in the book?
Mary Agnes.
Mary Agnes, when he sees her and everything just goes haywire because he's so love-struck with her. Did you have to transform yourself to walk in his shoes as best you could from afar?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, immersing yourself in the character, immersing yourself in the period is the goal, you know, to accomplish that authenticity, to give the reader that authentic experience, and choosing to write it in the first person, which, you know, some would say is a challenging or tricky choice.
Sure.
Was made really to put you in his shoes and allow you to experience the world as I imagine he would have.
Well, his were track shoes, and he wore them well, and we've been showing actual images of John Baxter Taylor as we've been talking here, so people don't get too confused. This was a real person who lived and breathed and walked the streets of Philadelphia and beyond, and he was good, you know, and I'm a former track guy myself, but certainly nothing along this level. The way that you portrayed his running style as a 400-meter man, and to the nuances of how he ran and what he was processing as he ran. You were saying earlier that you were never a track star yourself. What did you draw on there to really put us where he was?
Well, I ran a little track, and I did a little reading of some track books, and you know, tried to get a feel for track and field and how it's depicted. But you know, really, it's a matter of imagination.
Right, and he set some records. I mean, that's a matter of history. That, as we say, he didn't just win races; he was blowing the doors off of people in this race. And there you can see there, he was certainly a lean running machine. As we look at this image, as he's running down the tracks there, and you see other guys are running behind him because he was always out in front. But you portray his style as one of not just jumping out of the blocks and just sprinting with all you've got to the end of the race, because that's not how smart runners run.
Sure.
They pace themselves within the midst of the other runners there, and then when the timing is right, they make their move. They have to be in position to make their move, and then they make their move as they make their final sprint to the finish line. And he was very, 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 very good at that, and that's how he won a lot of his races. Then the matter of the Olympic Games come up, and he was asked to go to the Olympic Games. Talk a little bit about that period in John Baxter Taylor's life.
Sure. Well, when he returned to the University of Pennsylvania, he was lucky that a very renowned coach became the coach at the University of Pennsylvania, Mike Murphy. And this was a very innovative pioneer of athletic science, if you will. And he was also very deeply involved in the Olympics and that whole initiative. And that personality, that coach, I think really brought the best out of him and paved the way for him to be able to participate
Had
in
a
games.
big influence on his life,
Sure.
helped inspire him even further, particularly at a low point in his life, and as he began to move up from that. And then he gets to the Olympic Games, which were held in London, and he powered right through all of his preliminary heats, and then came the final. This is it. This is why you're there. The first ever, with all of the eyes upon him and everyone wanting him to fail, but he knew that he had to stay focused. Let me read one more excerpt from the book, and this is at the Olympic Games as he's running in the finals. And listen to the words as Craig paints a picture of what John Baxter Taylor must have been feeling as he was motoring down the track. He says, "I was alone at the front and hearing nothing but the wind of my own passage. I saw the crowds in the stands, all on their feet now, arms waving, mouths open in a wordless roar. I couldn't hear them. I couldn't feel them. Weren't thinking about them. They were cheering me on or booing my progress. He didn't know. He didn't care. There was no strategy here, no careful pacing, no thought. Just me and the wind and my desire. I ran what felt like the freest race of my life, free at last. I wanted to laugh out loud as I blazed a long trail down the track, but laughter required breath, and I must give all of that to the race. Instead, I offered up one gigantic smile. I was the black eagle, and I had come all this way to fly. I was flying. I ran this race for the slaves who had never known freedom. I ran this race for Mama and for Daddy. I ran this race for Clinton, Hattie, William, and Mary Agnes, his family members. I ran this race for the people of Philadelphia. I ran this race for the great nation of America. But most of all, I ran this race for me. Fly, Black Eagle, fly." What does it feel like when you hear your own words coming back to you?
It's extraordinary. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to read it. Again, the story of John Baxter Taylor is really worth reading from a historical standpoint. And I'm sure that there's so many people who are appreciative of the fact that you've taken on this undertaking. What's next for you? I know that you have to go back to your day job, but certainly you must have other books in you. What's next for Craig T. Williams?
Well, I've always gravitated to stories of heroes, and in particular, stories of heroes from diverse backgrounds, people of color. And there are a great many stories that haven't been told. You know, the obvious choice from this one would be to revisit the story of Jack Johnson, which is something I'm quite fascinated with. But there are stories from the days of the Roman Empire. There are stories from the ancient Egyptian culture. And I plan to visit a lot of those settings.
So we might see Craig T. Williams' life portrayed as the life of Pharaoh in another life, or from the ancient Romans, or something of that nature.
Something like that.
Yeah. Again, we thank you for bringing a Philadelphian's story to the world scene. And now maybe, just maybe, when people are asked the trivia question, who was the first black gold medalist in the Olympic Games, Jesse Owens won't be the first name that comes from their lips. But the answer, my friends, is John Baxter Taylor. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
All right, and thanks for being here. Thank you as well for watching. The book is The Olympian, An American Triumph, the story of the first African-American Olympic gold medalist. Pick it up. It's a good read. Stocking stuff read. Put it in bags. I'm Art Fennell. We'll see you again next time on The Report.